putting your creative thoughts out there and creating a world with these three women in it, that must have been very hard.
Yeah, I mean, this was just me, my imagination, and, my MacBook against the world, basically.
Me and my MacBook against the world.
And having to think through those plot points, or like thinking, oh, there's an anecdote or a little story I want to weave in here and fictionalize. How am I going to do it? But I don't want to make it too obvious that it's that person. But, I want to still make it a bit recognizable.
Yes.
How am I going to cover it up? So I had all those little challenges,
Is it like how they, in the movies when someone's figuring out a case, there's that investigator, that one captain in the police force, and then you see all the sticky notes and everything on the floor.
The string tying things together. Is that
the
what
pictures of the characters in the middle? Is that what it looked like?
Yeah, a little bit. Because, you have to get the timeline right. You have to make sure if this person's doing this, what is that person doing? If this person knows X, does that person know it too? Or do they think it's Y? And I wrote the book kind of like a revolving door of the three characters, so they each get their own perspective throughout the book. So having to also keep track of what's their voice, what's their backstory, what's their baggage, how do they interpret this thing that's happening. So having to keep track of all of that, oh no, Lynn wouldn't say X, or this is how Lebu would see it. So having to keep track of all the different things, the quirks of their personalities as well.
Considering writing a book is one of the highest ranking bucket list items for anyone in the world, would you recommend it?
Yes and no. Anyone who feels like, that saying, every journalist has a book in them and that's where it should stay.
I didn't know the second part.
Anyone who wants to do it, I'm always very encouraging of it, because it clearly means you have a story to tell. And when I say no, maybe not, it's really just tough. It's mentally tough because, as I said, it's you, your imagination, and your MacBook against the world. It's like every day you have to face that blank Word document and you have to come back to it every day, until it starts making sense, until it starts taking shape. So the only way to do it is to just do it. Set yourself a word count goal every day, as low as 100. It doesn't even, you don't have to write 5,000 words a day. That sounds like a lot. You just show up every day, write a couple of sentences, and you're on your way to writing a book.
If you can write a paragraph on the toilet every day,
you know what I'm saying?
You'll get there.
And it's also obviously quite important when you are in that phase of just make sure that you write, that you don't overthink and overanalyze and go, oh, I'm writing, but this isn't good.
No, you will never know whether it's good or not. You can never be your own judge of your writing. Your job as a writer is just to write down whatever it is that comes to your mind, and then when you've kind of completed, I want to write this again. These numbers sound big, but when you get to your 60,000 words, your 70,000 words, your 80,000 words, then you can start editing and going, okay, what is good and what isn't good from this. But just start writing. I mean, I'm back in it. I've started writing again, so that's also advice to me.
Is this a sequel, or is this is this when the filter fades again? What is happening?
Not quite. I'm doing this as a warm-up for the warm-up exercise. Guys, I'm writing a romance novel, a rugby-based romance novel. You heard it here first.
Rugby romance.
Yes.
I'm living for this.
Faf de Klerk, the true story. That's what it is.
Listen, Janine, you obviously in your career as a journalist interviewed and profiled some of the biggest influential figures in the world, including people like Michelle Obama and Rihanna. What are some of the learnings and the takeaways that you've got from doing those big interviews?
So when I interviewed Michelle Obama, the Obamas were here for a state visit, and I was the only South African journalist chosen to speak to her about education, girls' education on the continent. And I remember the lead up to the interview, like her team was very hands-on, they were prepping me on the side as well. And one day they just called me and they said, okay, we are recording you. Can you just pronounce your first name and your last name for us? And they recorded it because when Mrs. Obama comes to meet you, she needs to get the pronunciation right 100%. And that stayed with me. That had such an impact on me because I'm like, you can literally be Michelle Obama, but the pronunciation of some random journalist name is so important to you that she's going to rehearse it before she meets you. So that was a big lesson for me. And then with Rihanna, what was very striking to me was she is incredibly polite. Like, for all the bombast of her public persona, she is yes ma'am, no ma'am, please, thank you. You know, she is incredibly polite one-on-one. And she is locked in. The minute you sit down with her, you know, and you know, with these big celebrities, it's never just you and them in the room. There are like 100 people. Their whole team is with them. Yeah. But when she's in a room with you, she's like, she's there. She's locked in.
In my experience as well, like, the more famous the person is, the nicer and the more professional they are. The higher you climb up that food chain, like, they are so good and polished and genuinely nice because we understand that this is work.